Hey everybody, it's Scott Shetler from Extreme Performance Training Systems. In today's video, I want to look at, continue this series with some home gym training ideas or some home-based fitness program ideas for you. And I want to look at a couple great exercises for the abdominals or for your core training or torso training. People are no strangers to doing lots of crunches and lots of sit-ups, and actually a lot of those can be pretty stressful on the back, particularly if you got a bad back. I know we talked a little bit about in a previous video on hip flexor, the psoas being tight and how it can contribute to back pain. Well, if you've got tight psoas muscle and you're doing a lot of sit-ups, those tend to activate the hip flexors and can aggravate the back. So it's not that I think they're bad exercises, I just think that not every exercise is great for every person. One of the most overlooked aspects of abdominal or torso training is rotation. Now you see some people doing some cross-body crunches and things like that, and that's all fine. But I tend to prefer different types of rotation exercises like Russian twists and windshield wipers, which maybe we'll look at those in some upcoming videos. There's actually two that I want to present today. One is called a Sidewinder, and it's a little bit of a more advanced variation of a Russian twist. So if you're familiar with the Russian twist, usually involves leaning back. Sometimes people will elevate the feet, but it involves rotating side to side. A lot of times you see people holding a med ball, but we're bracing the torso, we're squeezing the glutes, and we're rotating side to side from the hips to work the rotation function of the abdominals or the obliques. The Sidewinder is actually performed on your back, and you're actually going to be walking with your hips and your shoulders as you do it. So it's a little bit more challenging. There's a little bit more coordination required to it, but if you're getting a little bit bored doing things like Russian twists and cross-body crunches and things like that, and you want something to challenge you a little bit in your ab training program, the Sidewinder is a great exercise. I also want to look at another exercise that I like. It's called a stir the pot. This one requires a stability ball or a Swiss ball. The stir the pot is a great exercise. It's like taking a plank and advancing the plank. So if you're doing a lot of planks and a lot of bridges, you'll often hear people talking about how many minutes they can hold a plank for. I can hold a plank for 2 minutes or 5 minutes or something like that. The stir the pot increases the difficulty of the plank exercise because you're essentially doing a plank on a stability ball. Then you're creating a movement. You're making circles on the ball, so you're creating this dynamic motion that your body's trying to stabilize against. So the stir the pot, all my clients that I have do it, when I demo a couple of reps with it, they think it looks pretty easy. Then they get down and they do a full set, and they say it's one of the hardest torso exercises they've ever done. And it's just a really great one to add to your program because I think in addition to rotational function, a lot of times the stabilizing function or stability function is often overlooked. Now planks are pretty popular and you see those quite a bit, but the stir the pot is a great exercise. It's often described as a plank on steroids. So we're going to take a look at that today too. So let's go ahead and we'll look at the Sidewinder first. Now the Sidewinder, you're going to need a little bit of space. Kind of lucky down here in my empty basement, I'm able to get a pretty big runway with my mats here. But I'm going to, even if you don't have a ton of space, if you got about maybe 5 or 6 feet on either side of you, that should be enough because you can always do a couple repetitions one way, a couple repetitions back, and then just walk your way back and forth for multiple sets of 2 to 3 in each direction. If you do have a little bit longer stretch, you can work bigger lengths. But again, the whole point of this exercise is just to increase the difficulty, make your ab training a little bit more fun, a little bit more challenging, because I'm sure we're all going stir crazy having to train in the confines of our home if we can't get to our gym, right? So with the Sidewinder, you're actually going to be laying down, and what you're going to see is you're going to walk yourself side to side by alternately rotating the shoulders and the hips. So I'm going to cock my hips to one side, and those are going to pull me over. And then I'm going to do the same with my shoulders, but we're kind of breaking up the function of the upper body and the lower body as we do this. So this is kind of like combining elements of both the Russian twist and the windshield wiper. All right, so from a lying position, you're going to lift your legs up. And if you're doing this without weight, which is how I recommend practicing it first, you're going to have to find a little bit of rhythm, but you're going to have to separate the hips from the upper body as you start to walk yourself across the mat, all right? So with the Sidewinder, you're going to pick up the hips and then the shoulders, and you're going to keep going back and forth. And then we go the other way. Like I said, if you want to add some resistance, you can hold a med ball. Oftentimes we'll grab a bumper plate or a weight plate. You can hold a kettlebell. The heavier the weight, the harder it's going to be, but I'm just going to do a demonstration with a little 10-pound med ball here. But again, what you'll notice is there's a bit of a disconnect between the hips and the shoulders as I'm walking myself up and down the mat. So that's the Sidewinder. Now it does take a little bit of practice to get. When I first started doing these, it took me a couple of minutes to get the coordination down. So if you're starting to try it and you can't quite get it right away, don't get too frustrated. But again, part of the point of this is to not only present you with a very effective abdominal training exercise, but to give you something to work on a little bit. We're not going anywhere anytime soon. So if you're really into your fitness program, you're looking for a little bit of variety in your training, spend a little bit of time learning that exercise. It's a lot of fun. It's a very challenging exercise. So hopefully you like the Sidewinder. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the stir the pot. Like I said, you're going to need a Swiss ball, or some people call these stability balls. But you're going to need a ball to do this one. And essentially you're going to get into a plank on the ball. Now, when you're first doing this, you may want to go with your feet a little bit wider. It's going to give you a little bit more lateral stability. And then as you get better with the exercise, you can bring your feet closer and closer together, and that's going to increase the difficulty of this exercise. All right, so essentially you're going to get into a plank position on your stability ball. Now, I usually put my hands in kind of a triangle pattern. Some people will just post them vertically, but I kind of like this triangle position on the ball, and it gives me a little bit better control. And then you're just going to walk yourself up to a plank position. Now you want to make sure that you're not sticking your hips way back and that you're not sagging your hips way down either, all right? So you're going to have to squeeze the glutes and brace the abs, get yourself into a nice solid plank. That's going to be challenging for a lot of people as it is, but if you're one of those people who are working planks and you're getting, you're able to hold a front plank for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and you're looking for another way to increase the difficulty with your stability ab exercises, stir the pot's the way to go. So like I said, you're going to get yourself up into a plank position. Again, we're not going to stick those hips up. We're not going to sag them down. We're going to squeeze those glutes, brace those abs, and get into a nice solid plank here. And then you're just going to draw circles on the ball in each direction. So I'm going to start rotating to the right. It doesn't need to be a big circle. Small circles are fine. If you go too far, you may roll off the side of the ball. So you're just going to make these circles. It's going to increase the difficulty of the exercise, and then make sure to do the same number of repetitions in the other direction. So like I said, the stir the pot, some of my clients will often refer to it as a plank on steroids, but it's a really tough exercise. It's going to increase the difficulty of the bracing in the abdominals, but when you're doing it, you want to make sure that you're locking down those abs really tight. Again, we're not trying to draw the belly button in, like we're not trying to pull the belly button toward the spine. Oftentimes that's what we're told to do when we're trying to engage our core or activate our abs. Really what you're trying to do is you're trying to brace your abs, all right? And the way to do that is, think about if you're going to get hit in the stomach, even hit yourself, you're not sucking your belly in and you're not pushing it out and making it big. You're kind of locking it down and squeezing, almost like you're trying to pull your rib cage down to your pelvis. And it's a combined effort between tightening the abs or bracing the abs and also squeezing the glutes, all right? So what that does is, in essence, it locks down all the muscles of the torso. Now, oftentimes, core is the big buzzword in the fitness industry, and it's often thought of as the core just being the abdominals or the rectus abdominals, which are what we know as kind of the six-pack abs, all right? That's just one part of the entire core. The core really is all the muscle from the armpit all the way down to the thighs, in my opinion. So when we're talking about training our core or engaging our core, we're not only working the rectus abdominals, we're working the obliques, the internal and external obliques, we're working the spinal erectors, we're working the transverse abdominis, which holds it all together, we're working the serratus and the pecs and the lats, we're working the hip flexors, the quads, the glutes, the hams, all that muscle that comes around the hip joint all the way up to the armpits. All this stuff that provides stability to the spine is the core. And so you often see people talking about their core training program and they're just doing crunches or sit-ups or leg lifts. And like I said, those are fine for training the rectus abdominals, but we want to make sure that we're hitting some rotation exercise, some stabilization exercise that prevents rotation, and don't neglect the lower back. Now, I've already done a video on strengthening your lower back, some things that you can do with your home-based fitness program for that. So definitely don't neglect that lower back training. And you want to think of when you're trying to strengthen your torso muscles or build your core, think about your spine. All right, if we look at just the skeletal anatomy of the body, think about that skeleton that's hanging in the chiropractor's office when you go off, and you'll see this just a skeleton hanging there. Think about the bony structure. If we take the arms and the legs out of the equation, think about the bony structure, the rib cage and the pelvic girdle. The only thing connecting those two is the spine, and the spine is just a series of vertebrae, and in between those vertebrae are discs, and everything is held together with connective tissue, with ligaments, with tendons, and then the muscular insertions all the way around the spine. So there is no real rigidity to the spinal skeleton. All right, it's not like our femur, our thigh is the thigh bone is the strongest, one of the strongest bones, if not the strongest bone in the body. It's like an iron rod compared to our spine. Our spine is just a series of bones that are held together with connective tissues, with padding in between them. The vertebrae, you got the discs padding in between the vertebrae, and it's not a solid structure. What gives it stability and support is the musculature, the muscular girdle that goes around that spine. So it's not just the rectus abdominis, it's not just the obliques, it's not just the lower back, it's all that stuff together that brings stability to the spine. So you want to make sure that you're training all that stuff equally. All right. So if we think of the spine as a pole, all right, if I was going to stand a pole up on the ground, I'd have two options as far as making it stay. I could either dig a hole and embed the pole down into the ground, or I could attach guy wires to the pole of equal lengths and tensions on each side. So that tension on each side of the pole, front and back, side to side, is going to hold that pole up. If I took away one of those tensions, the one on the opposite side is going to pull the pole over. All right, so if we think about the spine like that, if we did nothing but crunches and nothing but training that rectus abdominis, we would have so much tension on the front side, on the anterior side of the spine, it would bring everything out of balance. We need to make sure that we're training the obliques. We need to make sure that we're training the spinal erectors, that we're training the glutes, the hamstrings, the lats, everything together, and that we're doing it in equal doses. So if you spent your entire life just training your abs, doing a lot of crunches and a lot of sit-ups, you really need to spend a lot of time working the volume on the lower back, on the obliques, and then spinal stability exercises. So keep that in mind when you're doing your torso training or your core training. Don't just focus on those crunches, but work some of these exercises like the Sidewinders. If you're doing Russian twists, those are great. Or you're doing windshield wipers. If you're doing planks and side planks and bird dogs like I presented in the other video, there's so many good exercises that don't just focus on the little six-pack. A lot of people think it's six-pack because that's the visible, that's often the marker of a good fitness program. Really, it's the marker of a good diet. Everybody's got abdominals. The only way to see it is to burn off the fat. So it's a lot more than just training the six-pack. Make sure that you're working the obliques. Make sure you're working the lower back. And these two exercises, the Sidewinder and the stir-the-pots, are a great place to start if you're looking for a little bit more difficulty. If you're already doing some rotation exercises like wood choppers or Russian twists or windshield wipers and planks, and you're looking to raise the bar a little bit on those, check out the Sidewinder and check out the stir-the-pot. So hopefully you liked this video. Hopefully you guys are keeping your sanity, working those home-based fitness programs, and you're doing well. And I hope these videos are providing you some different tips and some different ideas on some things that you can do to bring a little bit of variety. And I know I'm trying to approach these videos from more of a minimalistic standpoint, thinking about some equipment that my clients have in their basements and in their garage gyms. Not everybody has a nice full setup where they got a squat rack and a lap machine and glute ham raise and all these cool machines that we have at my gym. Sometimes people just have access to things like stability balls, medicine balls, some kettlebells, some dumbbells, maybe a bench or two or something like that. So I'm really trying to bring kind of this minimalistic approach to show you some things that you can do with that equipment that you might have, that you don't need a ton of stuff to get a good workout. Now, these exercises don't replace good heavy deadlifting and squatting and pressing if you're trying to build strength and muscle. But They are some great things to do. Some, can focus on some areas that maybe you neglect when you're doing those big barbell lifts all the time in the gym. Maybe you're neglecting doing some direct abdominal and lower back work. Maybe you're neglecting doing some spinal stability work. Maybe you're neglecting your flexibility and your mobility and things like that. Now's the time to focus on that. If you can't, if you're into martial arts and you can't get to the gym and train, jiu-jitsu or striking and stuff like that, now's the time to give the joints a little bit of a rest. Maybe, work on some drilling movements, some things that you can do on your own, but give the joints a rest, work on the flexibility, work on the mobility, work on those muscular imbalances that might have been created through that sort of training. So take the time now and work those things that you're going to go back and start neglecting again when you get back to the gym. So get creative, think about some things that you could do to maximize this time that we're forced to take. And again, hopefully you're enjoying these videos. If you've got any suggestions for some topics, for some exercises that you'd like addressed, or if there's anything that you just want me to address as it relates to home-based fitness training, just training in general, please feel free to email me at scott@eptsgym.com. You can always leave those suggestions or questions in the comments below this video. You can get at me on my social media. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can direct message me. Whatever it takes to get to me, I'm more than happy to include that content in some future videos. If you really thought that there's something valuable in this video that maybe a friend or a family member might get out of this video, please feel free to share this video with them, and make sure you like the video and subscribe to my channel. Encourage your friends to subscribe to my channel as well. So hopefully this content is helping you out. Hopefully we're helping them out. And until next time, stay strong and stay healthy.